let's talk about a few lessons there. A few things that I hear is that, so one thing about yield farming, it's three main ways to get a real yield. And when I say real yield, I mean like you're getting a piece of revenue that the protocol is actually making. That can either come from insurance premiums, using your liquidity to facilitate borrowing and lending on like an Aave or Compound, or to facilitate trades on a decentralized exchange, kind of like Uniswap, or what was the project called again? DeFi Kingdoms, which was a DEX also. So a lot of times, if it's not one of those three things, usually it's the rewards are being paid from token inflation, which is like they'll have like a token allocation. The founders get their slice. The VC, if it's VC backed, they'll have some for the community where they'll just dish out into the market so people can buy. But they'll have a large amount for what they call incentives. So like, let's say you want people to come and use your decentralized exchange. Well, instead of just paying them the real yield from the swap fees, which if you're not Uniswap, the swap fees are probably going to be minuscule. So in an effort to try to bootstrap liquidity and get people trading on your DEX, they'll have some, in this case, let's call it Jewel token, set aside so that once you're providing liquidity, not only are you getting paid in the real yield, but you're getting paid in the platform's token, which is Jewel. Now, given that these tokens are highly inflationary, you have to think when you're yield farming, you're competing with other farmers, right? It's not like a traditional farm where it's like, all right, you got your crops. This other farmer across the street has its own crops and we're separate. It's almost like the crops is only a certain amount of crops underground, and no matter where your farm is determines on what you can get. It's not like a separate thing. So it's a good idea to, like, this farming token, a lot of people are just farming the token and they're dumping it because they know it's inflationary, and then they know people are doing the same thing. Even if the protocol has like fundamental value, just think about how much Bitcoin went down, how much ETH went down, how much Apple went down, how much Amazon went down. Like, it doesn't matter how good something is, even if you believe in the long term, it could be a good idea, even if you're a swing trader, to take some profits off the table so that you can like take advantage of other opportunities. That's kind of what I picked up from that. Isaac, what's your thoughts?
No, I would agree. Actually, what I could show you is I have some DeFi strategy notes I could show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so these are what we used to use in order to figure out if we wanted to get involved with a certain protocol or not. So let me share my screen here.
Okay.
So in order to discern whether you want to use a protocol or not, what I used to do, and my last company, what we used to work with, was we would kind of go through everything step by step, starting with usually like what is the APY, what are the rewards, what are the fees, liquidity in LPs, lending, borrowing pools. The main idea is that, like, the way that crypto works and the way that they're going to entice you to use certain yield farms is they're going to say, oh, you know, we give out 500% APY. You're going to, you know, 5x your money just by letting it sit here. You know, no, you know, it's nothing crazy. You know, we're not going to fuck you over. And oftentimes, if they're promising that, there's usually something sketchy involved, because a fairly golden rule of investment is that if you're getting paid more interest, you're usually taking on more risk. There's almost a direct correlation, or I guess, direct correlation in the amount of risk that you're taking on and the amount of interest you're going to be getting paid. Not always, but generally speaking. In DeFi, that's especially the case because they have to convince users to actually use their platforms. And when you look at the APY and you see 500%, this is going to include a lot of bullshit. So the main thing is that you're usually going to be get paid in a lot of things like, oh, we'll pay you, 500%, but X% of that is our reward token. And as was just eloquently explained by Vincent, reward tokens are these farm tokens, highly inflationary. Often they only really exist in order to pay out, users and the, investors and the owners of the application, because their main purpose is really just as like kind of a buffer on people's interest in order to boost up that APY. They don't really have a lot of utility. They might invent some utility like, oh, look at our most, our highest APY earning pool is, X farm token and USDC. Hey, that's a reason to hold our crappy farm token because you're going to get paid even more crappy farm token. And
Maybe
they'll
you
set up
can
all
make
these
our
schemes
NFT
too.
that does nothing with this token.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, which was with Froggers was one of those where it's like, oh, buy the Frogger, you get the Frogger NFT. What do you get now? Well, now you get our crappy Frogger token that we're gonna if you stake your Frogger, we'll pay you in Frogger token. And it's like there's no utility in any of this. And oftentimes in the fine print, not often, but this is the case sometimes, there will be fees for removing liquidity. There will a lot of times be lockup periods where it's like, oh, you've put in your money, we're going to lock it up. And if you're not going to get paid anything for X amount of time. And if you want to remove it, we're going to have to take a fee of, X% of whatever you locked up.
Deposit fees sometimes too.
Yeah, deposit fees. All these things exist in some regard or another to just keep you locked in, because that's how they will function as an exchange. They need liquidity. They're trying to set up a system that draws in liquidity, whether it's high APY, whether it's kind of sneaky, fine print details, whether it's fees. They're trying to build up liquidity and make a profit, So it's like, and that's why people get into DeFi oftentimes with this idea of like, I'm just going to make a ton of money. Like this is like insane technology and just prints money. And sometimes that can happen, but it's very rare and it's usually very fleeting. And more often than not, like these people and these protocols exist because they make money. And they're either making money from kind of schemes and like these, nifty little fees and all these other things, or they're making money from people using their exchange. They're making money on people that are exchanging tokens. And if you're a new, protocol and you're trying to entice people, you usually have to rely a lot more on the scheming than on the actual use, on like money made from uses, because there's just not as many users yet. You don't have that Lindy. And Lindy means like when something is around for a while, it tends to retain value. When something's new, it's more likely to die because it doesn't have that retention built in yet. So just be wary of those things. That's something that we would always look at. We'd look at how much of the APY is real, how much of it is crap, and if there's any, we called it fuckery, but you could, come up with other, more family-friendly terminology. But that's what we said. We said they're fuckery. We said no audit for the protocol. Always make sure protocols are audited by, trustworthy audits. The blockchain they use sucks. Huge one.
I want to add one thing to that audit thing. I forget what the firm was, but there was like an audit firm that most of the projects was getting their audit from, which is like they're like the shitty auditing firm.
Yeah.
It was cheap, it was quick. So you want to verify that the auditing firm is legit, see what other projects they audited. But the most important thing is that when you look at an audit, a lot of times there will be an audit that comes out first and it'll give you like things that they fucked up on that they have to fix. A lot of projects will just post that audit and not even fix the thing. You want to see another audit after that where they highlight those points that were fucked up on basically and show that they were fixed too.
On top of that too, bug hunters, like if you have a protocol that pays people for locating bugs on your protocol or on the protocol, like that's like a great feature. If they're paying users to locate errors and fix them, that's amazing. They can. And they can. There's a lot of sites, a lot of protocols that will have rewards for people that locate bugs. And that's usually a good sign because it means that they are open to people pointing out errors so they can actually fix it. If you have a protocol that is not open to criticism or is not trying to incentivize locating errors or issues, that is a scam. I'm just going to say, even if they're like, it's more often than not, that's like a scam. Like they don't want you to point out issues because they don't give a shit. They know this is not going to last very long and they're trying to make a buck while it's, occurring. So
I can't tell you how many times, mostly on the tune forks, I was in Discords and I'm like, man, something happened. Like it was the deposit fee didn't say it was, or I'll like put it in like the main chat because you DM them and they take forever. And then they'll get back to you and they'll be like, they'll delete the comment first so no one else sees it. And they'll be like, bro, can you not like what do they call it? Put FOMO in here or FUD. That's what they say.
FUD, yeah.
Like, FUD?
Fear, uncertainty, doubt. FUD.
Yeah, man. Like you'll notice the difference. Like Isaac said, if people care about the protocol and it lasting, they will welcome these kind of feedback, like questions and comments, concerns, whatever you want to call it. But if they're deleting your comments and they'll like ban you for talking for like a day or an hour, it's a red flag.